Good morning, everyone. Sorry, yes, my apologies. Good afternoon. My name is Frederick Innes. I am the CEO acting of the Barbados Agricultural Development and Marketing Corporation. I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. We have a very brief program, but we are hoping to mark this historic occasion with a small ceremony of ribbon cutting and an unveiling of a plaque. So we are hoping that you all will be able to participate fully and observe what we've been able to achieve here at the River Plantation, the Browne Pond Catchment. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our chair. First. We are actually going to ask everyone to stand quickly for just the playing of the anthems. If we don't mind, join in the singing. In plenty and in time of need, when this clear land was young, our great forefathers sowed the seed from which our pride is sprung. A pride that makes no wanton boast of what we have withstood, that unites our hearts from coast to coast, the pride of nationhood. We loyal sons and daughters all do hereby make it known. These fields and hills beyond recall are now our very own. We write our names on history's page with expectations great, straight guardians of our heritage, firm craftsmen of our faith. Apologies for that brief technical issue, but at this juncture, we would like to invite Dr. Kama to bring the welcome.
The Honorable Prime Minister, Mia Amor Motley, His Excellency, Dr. Mohammed Ifran Ali of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Honorable Indar Ware, members of the Board of the Barbados Agricultural Development and Marketing Corporation, permanent secretaries and other members of the Ministries of Agriculture and Transport, Works and Water Resources, representatives of C.O. Williams Construction Company Limited, other specially invited guests, and the farmers of the River Plantation Farming District. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I take this opportunity to extend a warm welcome to all of you to this official opening ceremony of the Browne's Pond catchment here at the historic River Plantation. On behalf of the board of the Barbados Agricultural Development and Marketing Corporation and the farming community here at the plantation, I would like to express our thanks for your participation in this signal event. The catchment, which you see before you, is the culmination of 12 months of effort by the small project team of the BADMC and the contractor selected for this development, C.O. Williams. Together, our entities have converted a small natural pond to a modern catchment which has a capacity to allow us to hold and store 6 million gallons of storm water. As you can see, even with relatively short rain events, the solution ably demonstrates the new holding capacity. This storage will now be transformed even further to redound to the benefit of the farmers here at River Plantation. Today's opening also formally relaunches the pump house and irrigation network, which services a portion of the lands in this farming district. Additional plans to add to the storage capacity at Three Houses Plantation Yard and creating an interconnected system which maintains continual access from the natural spring which traverses this area are also well advanced. Other technical solutions to control evaporation, improve distribution to the wider plantation are also being actively considered. All of this work is being delivered in order to improve the capacity of the farmers of this district in their ability to feed or to help to feed our nation. Food and nutritional security demand that we as a nation move beyond words to achieve that critically important stable place, as our Prime Minister continuously reminds us. Prime Minister and Minister Ware, I wish to assure you that the board and management of the BADMC fully understand that our future demands that we act by taking bold and consequential steps, and this solution is one such example, and we are committed to continuing to execute. Welcome again to all, and I would take this opportunity to turn it back over to Mr. Innes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Comer. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of Minister Waldron and Mr. Mustafa, Ministers of Tourism and Agriculture, respectively, from Ghana. Thank you very much as well for being with us. At this juncture, we'll have a slight departure from the printed program. We're going to invite Mr. Andrew Hutchinson, if he's so willing and kind, to join us just to give a little bit of technical background as to what we have done here. Mr. Hutchinson has been involved in the discussions in relation to the river plantation and the redevelopment of this plantation for a number of years, first with an FAO project and now as part of this redevelopment. So I would just wish to invite Mr. Hutchinson to say a few words. Thank you.
Morning. Protocols being established, I wouldn't repeat them. Honorable Prime Minister, President Ali. You know, I'm a Philippian, right? All my life. I was born up here and I live up here, so this project means a lot to me. We did a study, I think we finished it in 2015, a CDB-funded study, which looked at developing river, 600 acres for BADMC, irrigation, flooding, etc. And this is one of the first recommendations coming out of that study, that you build a phase one pond, 6.5 million gallons, to get irrigation going for 200 acres. All right, so this is we've fulfilled that objective to some extent. There's obviously provisions for phase two, phase three, if the farming community then absorbs and want to go larger. But just a brief snapshot. The watershed coming in here is close to 2,000 acres when we talk about Pleasant coming down. It all comes down through the Three Houses spring, as we call it, which comes all the way here. And the act of I think it's 1703, mandated that the spring should come to Browne Pond. So we've kept that. When we were doing my design, there was a lot of lobbies to build ponds somewhere else, and I said, no, you got to stay with the act, come to Browne Pond. So what we're trying to do is make sure that before all the water used to go up the stream and go into suck wells and be lost. So we're trying to make sure we don't lose any water. We put all it in the pond. So and when it rains, you get more runoff and the pond gets bigger and so forth. So, without going into too much stuff, I mean, I know this 600 acres, there's some cattle dairy farming, there's some sheep farming, there's some places for poultry as well. But most of it is into our for crops. And I think this will make a tremendous dent. And you can't increase food output without irrigation. You know, that's common sense. So this is a big step in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, so at this juncture, it's my pleasure to introduce Minister Indar Weir to offer some brief remarks.
Honorable Mayor Amor Motley, His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, Honorable Onej Waldron, Honorable Zulfikar Mustafa, Special Envoy, Chairman of BADMC, board members, farmers of St. Philip, delegates, distinguished ladies and gentlemen all. It is my distinct pleasure to be here with you this afternoon on this historic occasion in St. Philip. And you may note, those of you who are here from St. Philip South will note that I am saying St. Philip, because St. Philip is the only parish in Barbados where all we are one family. I am indeed pleased also to note that this project came out of a rubbing shoulders event that took place when we were in opposition, where the Prime Minister came here to meet with the farmers. Some had tears in their eyes when speaking, because the challenge that they faced here at River was twofold. One, when it rained too much, everything got washed away. And then when it didn't rain at all, everything dried up and died, because upstream to this pond, people were damming and damming and damming. And Mr. Hutchinson mentioned the Three Houses Spring Act. Three Houses Spring Act really was designed to allow for inhabitants along the stream to be able to dam for 24 hours for livestock farming. The only exception was for Three Houses Plantation, which had 72 hours. But the water was supposed to flow into Browne Pond for free access by all the farmers who were around. Since then, what we got is a number of catchments being set up along this stream, putting those farmers downstream at extreme disadvantage, and therefore all of their crops were compromised during the drought periods. And you know, with climate change, the drought periods now are longer than they used to be in the past. So we came here, we listened to the farmers, we also met with the residents, some along the stream, and the Prime Minister took a decision for us to develop this catchment area so that all of those farmers downstream can get access to water. I am pleased today, ladies and gentlemen, to note that we have delivered on that promise in phase 1, and I wish to thank the BADMC, the staff at BADMC, and the board of the BADMC for getting us to this point today. I wish also to state that we have a very big agenda in agriculture. The ministry, when I first became minister, was Minister of Agriculture and Food Security. After the event of January 19th, where I had the honor of being invited to serve again, the ministry is now the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Nutrition Security. that is significant in that when you do the combination of food security and nutrition, which is pretty much high on the agenda of the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, you start to connect the dots and understand why we have to get to nutrition as well. And with the amount of NCDs that we are confronted by in Barbados, it is equally important that when we address food security, we also address nutrition as well. And that is the reason why our agenda is so large in agriculture. Because what we have to do now is to make sure that food is provided for every citizen of this country, those who visit Barbados for a holiday, and those who are here as students in our university, and we have several universities now. We have the University of the West Indies at Cavehill campus, but we have several other universities, international universities as well. And of course, we have the visitor stamp as well, where people reside and work here in Barbados. This therefore means that it is important for us to be able to provide food on a consistent basis, but at the same time, healthy food. And that parallel track on which we are going will determine for us how we set our agenda in achieving our 25 by 25 target, which is reducing CARICOM's food import bill by 25% by the year 2025, a target that has been set since 2018 and one that is being pursued by the excellent work of His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali and Minister Mustafa as well. And therefore, this task, ladies and gentlemen, we intend to complete, and therefore all of River will be cultivated, and we will have a full 400 acres available to the farmers in this district doing livestock farming and crop production. And therefore, I wish to thank the team at the ministry for working with me through this and for making sure we got to this point. And I wish to thank all of you farmers over here at River for being patient with us and for affording us the opportunity to be able to work with you as we listen to your concerns and try to rebuild and develop agriculture to a stage where we can provide food security and nutrition as well. And ladies and gentlemen, against that backdrop, I wish to give you my assurance that this will be done. I'm obliged to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. At this juncture, I would like to invite His Excellency, Dr. Irfan Ali, to...
Thank you. Please, thank you. My dear assistant friend, Prime Minister Motley, ministers of government, private sector. I see you have the private sector here, permanent secretaries, technicians, but more importantly, the farmers and members of this community. Today I'm very pleased to join Prime Minister Motley on this very important and significant project to her. But I want to congratulate Minister Indar. You know, every time I hear him speak, and I've had the opportunity to listen to him quite a few times now, he's getting more and more attached and passionate for agriculture and food production. And he's becoming a great motivation, and it's the same thing for our Minister of Agriculture in Guyana. I think for the first time in the region, not only we have leaders who are committing and setting themselves target to this task of food security, but I think equally we are matched with a good bunch of ministers in the agricultural sector, and they are advancing this process forward. You know, sometimes the simplicity of an occasion can make us lose sight of the magnitude of what we're accomplishing. One of the blessings we have in Guyana is abundant fresh water. And when you look here, you have to create water. Basically, you have to create infrastructure for water. And this is the complexity of this region we're operating in the CARICOM region. In one area, you have the abundance of fresh water. In another area, you have the lack of fresh water. But it also speaks to the long vision that Prime Minister Motley and the government of Barbados is pursuing. Because this is not a project about today alone. If we are going to build an agricultural sector that ensures food security and sustainability with coming water shortages and so on, water management issues, then these investments are lifetime investment for the farmers. So this is an investment not only for the farmers today, but for farmers 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, to ensure that farming becomes sustainable in this community. And I want to say that that vision, that long vision, must be transformative. My friend who spoke about the technical aspects of what has been done here, you know, place it in a small community project. In large economies, you have massive highways that are considered transformative. But I think this project is a transformative project for this community because it secures livelihood. It enhances livelihood. And it gives the farmers a better shot at sustainable farming. It reduces risk. And if a project reduces risk, increases productivity, reduces costs of production, then it has all the components of a transformative project. So I want to congratulate the government of Barbados and the people and the farmers in this community for this transformative project that will increase productivity and enhance your ability to be sustainable. In agriculture, the farmers will tell you, the technical people will tell you, one of the highest costs is drainage and irrigation. And drainage and irrigation is the foundation of agriculture. If you don't have proper drainage and you don't have proper irrigation, then you cannot have proper farming practices. You cannot have sustainable farming practices. So this investment is key. But if we look at the scale of investment, let us say an average of over $1 million US. And sometimes we look at scale only by number. But if you do a qualitative analysis of the quantitative project, you will see that if you have 180 farmers here, this is an investment per capita of farm in this community of close to $6,000–7,000 US in phase one alone. In the most developed societies, in the most developed farming society, you don't have that injection from government in a per capita basis. You have to be proud of what the government is doing to advance your life here. And that is why I made the point yesterday that sometimes we do ourselves a great injustice because we say we are small. When we look at our market, the first thing we say, our market is so small. We look at our population is so small. This is for Guyana. But when we look at what we do in a qualitative way, we can match any single other country because we make the commitment through investment for the people. And that is a point I don't want us to lose. There are some other, what you may say, some may say intangible, but very critical issues that this project would address. And I know Minister Indar pointed to some of it. I just want to mention two. I don't want to be too long. But I just want to, because it's important. One, in Guyana, and I can say for sure, one of the major issues we have to deal with in farms, especially farms that has multi-users, where you have dairy, as my friend said, you have dairy, you have cash crop, you have sheep, livestock. Then you have what you call competing demands. Because each user of water wants water at a different time. In Guyana, we have sugarcane, rice, cash crop. So we have conflict because of this competing demands. Conflict among farmers and conflict within farm. This project helped to resolve that. a major issue. And we have to understand that's another big benefit that this project brings. Reducing the conflict by competing use of water, for competing use of water. So, and one of the major issues the world is faced with today is the issue of water conflict, whether it's water for human consumption or water for farms. That is one of the largest issues the world is facing. For a matter of fact, some policymakers are predicting that the next wave of global warfare will be around water and food. Because as one technical presenter put it, if there is a shortage of food and then there is hunger that steps in, then there will be invasion for food. If there is a shortage of water, there will be invasion for water. We're already seeing it within states in the most mature countries. So infrastructure leads to sustainability. I just want to conclude by congratulating Prime Minister Motley, Minister Indar, the technical team, the government of Barbados, for what I want to categorize as a transformative investment that would lead to food security, increased production, and of course, Barbados achieving that important target of 25 by 2025. I thank you.
I'd like to say thank you very much to Dr. Ali, President, Your Excellency. That was very informative, and we do appreciate your presence here and your words. At this juncture, I would seek to impose on Prime Minister, the Honorable Mia Amor Motley, to offer a few words to us as well as her remarks and responses. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please sit. My dear brother, His Excellency President Ali, Ministers Ware, Walram, and Mustafa, Chairman of the BADMC, Dr. Koma, Special Envoy, Althea Wiggins, Consul General, Guyana, distinguished guests all, President of Setu Saab. You are President of Setu Saab as well. And I recognize you, even though you are a board member, I recognize you for the leader and labor that you are. I am happy. And I want to know whether the farmers are happy. Let me hear you. Because when we first visited here a few years ago, there was water, but it wasn't water in a pond. It was water on their faces. And I will never forget that moment, because to see big men cry at the prospect of losing the fruits of their labor simply because of the elements of nature, nothing that they had done, nothing that they had caused, but simply by reason of the circumstances of nature. And confronting the brutish reality that that would mean that their families would not be able to eat or be sustained. We made a decision then that we would do all in our power, recognizing that Barbados was one of the 15 most water-scarce countries in the world, is one of the 15 most water-scarce countries in the world. Recognizing that we were also entering into an arena where the climate crisis was going to lead to more virulent storms and hurricanes, but equally to dreaded droughts. And it is against that backdrop that in a very difficult fiscal and economic situation, we made judgment calls. And in these difficult situations, we cannot be to everybody what everybody would like us to be to them. but we have to pick some winners. And we pick winners on the basis first of need, not want. This country needs to feed itself. This country must feed itself. And for the first time, the government of Barbados has had to bring back on stream on the consolidated fund out of the taxpayers' central budget the cost of water and the provision of water. $30 to $35 million each of the last 2 years, representing in each year 1/3 of 1% of GDP for those who like economics. For those who don't, a mobbiton of money. And the point that President Ali was making in terms of the per capita spend, he did his calculations based only on phase 1. But by the time we finish with phase 2, it is going to be in excess of 16,000 per capita, which is way in excess of what other developed countries spend on farmers in terms of where they put them in their overall budget. And it's not just here at River. But before I leave River, I have an obligation to salute Indar Ware. Because, Indar, your voice has been constant in the defense of the 180 farmers here at River, as well, of course, as farmers across Barbados. But anybody who appreciates that this is also your constituency bordering, because we treat St. Philip as one parish, as you said, and not just the geographical limits of what jurisdictionally may be yours by law, would appreciate that many ministers of agriculture have come before. And many ministers of agriculture have left River as barren as they found it. And that this is the first minister of agriculture to have come, to have seen, and to have conquered. So the farmers, believe you me, you have a friend in Indar, because his voice is what sustained us and competed against other interests in cabinet as to why this should be a priority. But it wasn't only St. Philip, it's also Bordens and Haggett's. And when we leave here today, we go to Lairs, where there's a slightly different institutional arrangement, but you will see a pond more than 3.5 times the size of this pond in my constituency, bringing for the first time the prospect of agricultural production in urban Barbados again, having had it abandoned over the course of the last few decades. And governments before and ministers of planning before me regrettably took the land, which I believe to be some of our most arable and productive land, and took it out of production and put it into housing. And I have said no, not as PM, but as MP. People in urban Barbados must equally be given the opportunity to be able to feed themselves. And the notion of only a pine basin that was abandoned for many years and by many and farmed by few cannot be the sum total of what urban agricultural production must look like in this country. And I therefore look forward to the formal launching of that Lairs project in the near future, especially now that we have completed the framework and the infrastructure for the pond at Lairs. This government has chosen to spend millions of dollars. And when we finish, it might well come close to $80 million over the course of a few years in trying to provide water to our farmers. $40 million US, 80.8% of GDP, of 1% of GDP. And why? Because as you heard from President Ali, this is what transformation must look like in agriculture. If we are to put agriculture back on a sustainable path, if we are to feed ourselves, if we are to grow what we eat, we have to be able to take these decisions to remove the obstacles that are constraining you as farmers from being able to produce. And water is the most critical one, but it is not the only one. For those who are still in open crop farming, the quality of our soils continues to be a major issue. And therefore, we are determined to ensure that we not only do the kind of deep plowing to be able to ensure that the soils can breathe, but we also look at the micronutrients that are necessary in order to build back up our soils so that we can build back up the yield that we must have in this island, especially given that land is a scarce commodity as well. In addition to that, we have determined that we are going to deal with the distribution arm with the Guyana-Barbados Food Terminal because the word glut must be removed from our vocabulary. This world cannot afford the luxury of seeing food spoil in any form or fashion, not when the technology is there to blast freeze or to process or to do other things with it that will enhance its storage life and will ensure that when things truly get hard in a drought, that there is access to food for our people to eat. These things are critical. And then, of course, there is the logistics and the transport of which we have been speaking. And I hope that the political will that we are seeing among leaders within this region will allow us to finally overcome this hurdle that literally affects not just us in CARICOM, but as you heard from President Ali last night, also those in northern Brazil. The state of Roraima does not have access to a port immediately. And it has to travel up, 7.5 hours by road now to get up to a port through Guyana?
9 hours.
9 hours. And therefore, you can only imagine that that journey, combined with the heat, combined with the roughness of the journey, will bruise, in many instances, particularly fruit. And therefore, we have to find a way to be able to move our food and our fruit and our animals, our carcasses, once we are in a position to do so, because this region can feed itself, but it must put in place the institutional arrangements so to do. I want to come back to the issue of water, because it is a vexatious issue for many. And it is a difficult issue for many who would not appreciate that we are going to confront more and more problems going forward with respect to how we can access groundwater, and we must at the same time remove the very difficult hurdle of the scale of non-revenue water, a fancy phrase for simply the water that leaking out through the pipes in the ground. And that for every gallon you pump, you're losing almost half of that, literally, before it gets to who it is supposed to get to. That is why this government, perhaps more than any other utility, we've had to confront it year after year after year. But we're not blind or we're not deaf. And therefore, those farmers in St. Lucie who feel that they are under pressure because of the arrangements that we put in place in the budget, I've asked the Minister of Agriculture to arrange a meeting with me and with them this week so that we can sit down and discuss. We cannot change the pricing because literally we cannot sustain a price of 66 cents for 220 gallons of water anymore when that was the price for the last 40 years. But we can ensure that the burden does not fall on you in a disproportionate way. And we can ensure that if there are burdens that you carry from the past, I like to tell people I do not have eyes in the back of my head. I only have eyes in the front. And therefore, I will do all that I can to walk with you in good faith so long as we are looking forward. And if there are obstacles behind me that we need to remove, let us remove them and let us walk together in good faith towards a bountiful future. So I look forward to that meeting because ultimately the Minister of Agriculture will tell you, as well as the Chief Agricultural Officer and the Permanent Secretary, that I have been particularly hard on them for the last few months. Not because I dislike them, not because I don't feel that they're doing a good job, but because I understand that the place in which we find ourselves requires us to push and push and push to the maximum of our limits. We are not in an easy place in this world. and the continued problems and increased costs and complexity of access to goods and equipment, each one of them can take us out. We can be taken out simply by the cost of fertilizer. We can be taken out by the inability to receive critical pieces of equipment or spare parts that are necessary for either tractors or for pumps that are necessary to get the water to people. We can be taken out by ultimately a drought. And when you look at the risk, therefore, that farmers face and that the country faces as a whole with respect to food and nutrition security, then you will understand why, therefore, every day my business is to make sure that we can become closer to the point of being able to take care of our people and ensure that they can have access to food when it is most needed. We have also to educate our public and our consumers. The notion that you can go and buy 12-month-old onions in a supermarket instead of buying fresh onions that we are producing here in St. Lucie and all about Barbados is something that we need to start to educate our people. President Ali, we need a CARICOM stamp of food and CARICOM produce so that we can run a regional campaign where Caribbean people can say, I want to buy Caribbean food, even if it costs me 10 cents more or 50 cents more, because I know that my money is now going to keep our society safer and our societies more stable. But when I go and spend money on food or chicken or other produce from outside, I don't know what they're using to feed. We were talking last night about the shrimp coming out of certain countries that is being used even here, that is full of the kinds of chemicals that will cause us not to be able to fight off viruses. You go in a hospital and you get a super virus. You hear me talking? I can talk about it till I'm nauseous. Yes, I co-chair the committee globally. But you go in a hospital and you catch a super virus, and the antibiotics that they're giving you to fight it off ain't working because your body resistant to it. And why your body resistant to it? Because you're not only taking too much antibiotics when you shouldn't really be taking them as a human being, but you're then taking it from the livestock that you're buying overseas. You go to the States and Europe, and most of the industrial livestock being pumped up with what? With things that helping to literally make sure that your body can't fight off these viruses. You go and you get avocado from certain parts of the world, try and stick home and eat a Bajan pear. I am not joking. You understand? You go and you want to eat citrus from all out in different parts of Asia. Eat some Guyanese citrus, and we're going to make sure that you get it back into Barbados again, please. These are the things that we need to be talking to our people, because once you know, you have choice. And if you have choice, then you have to make the right choices for yourselves and your children and your family and your parents. And all we are trying to do is to make sure that you have that choice. Because if we don't grow enough, if we don't produce enough livestock, then you will not have that choice. And the last point I'd like to make is that there was a time growing up in Barbados that they used to say Bajans won't eat shrimp. You remember that? 40, 50 years ago, it was not something that was natural to this country. Roy, how much shrimp you eat as a boy? That's the point. But our tastes have changed. And one of the things that my brother, Minister Mustafa, has promised me, this is not, President Ali, this is a direct thing, is that we will be able to start doing some farming. Some farming of shrimp and prawns, so that we can start to supply not only the Barbados tourism industry and the Barbados household, but also those in the Eastern and Southern Caribbean who are now importing millions of dollars in frozen shrimp and frozen prawns to be able to service our populations and those who visit us. And I hope that we can get the larvae. I'm told that within 6 months, 6 months? And that once we build the ponds, and we also look at the possibilities for the brackish water, and Minister Weir has promised me that before the delegation leaves tomorrow, he will let them see all the possibilities, because this is the Christmas gift that I want from Indar Weir. And I have now told him that in the full knowledge that he has an advantage because Minister Mustafa wants to make it happen. So my friends, thank you for being here. But above all else, to the farmers of River, you are the ones. You are the ones who caused this to happen. And may I say, as it relates to the Three Houses Spring Act, the act is very, very precise in its language. I cannot be responsible for those governments before me from the 18th and 19th and 20th and 21st century who did not want to hold persons to the strict provisions of the legislation. But I am a former Attorney General, and I intend to hold all persons who access the Three Houses Spring to that particular piece of legislation, and that if you have livestock, you can dam for 24 hours. But beyond that, damming for bird shooting and all other types of recreational activity is a desired wish. But in my world now, wishes and wants cannot come before needs. Let us to the task proceed and provide the food for our people in this region, and in particular for our community and our country. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister. Your words, as always, are inspiring, and I think we speak on behalf of everyone here that we do appreciate your guidance and drive to move us forward at this location and the others across the island. As the next pieces on the agenda, we actually are going to invite the Honorable Prime Minister as well as His Excellency President Ali to assist us in some formal ribbon cutting over to to your left. Followed by a brief tour led by the management of the BADMC and CO Williams. And from there, the unveiling of a small plaque which we have mounted on the side of the pump house. Those would be essentially the culmination of our formal activities. At the end of that and in between, there are some refreshments that have been provided here under the small tent. And those are ably prepared by Chef Raul Seeley, a chef who, young in age, but has a wide experience, training in China, I understand, California. And I want to just use this opportunity to make the special plug using some of Carmita's products produced by the Barbados Agricultural Development and Marketing Corporation. So without any further ado, we will invite our honored guests to assist us with the ribbon cutting, the brief tour, and then the final formal element. Thank you very much.
on top, which will reduce the level of evaporation, but it will also allow us to get a return on our investment and get back some money that we put into the ground over the next 20 years. So, a win-win, we hope.
And that's what was challenging us when we were looking at it.
Increase the penalties. Yeah. And have a daily penalty for every day that we're taking a water.
Exactly how the app was designed. Exactly how the app was designed. So this is the pump house. Right? So once up and running, all
phase 2 is what?
phase 2 is what?
You filter in the water.
That is what?
So they filter in the water.
Andrew? What's Andrew say?
Because they're
Phase 2 and phase 3 is what now? Sorry?
Phase 1, which is this, which support approximately 200 acres. Phase 2 is involved in a larger farm area with bananas over there. Phase 3, another one over here. So that you can harvest no runoff. The watershed is 2,000 acres, and when it rains in August, September, October, November, plenty water comes in. So the object is to store the water in the rainy season, have it for irrigation during the dry season. And that's
How much water you would have to take out then?
Oh, no, it's about, I had phase 2 was planned to have a 30 million gallon pond over there, which is quite large. This is 6 million, so, yeah. And,
So how much acre you would have to take out?
it's about, your pond at Lears is 5 acres, so 22 sections is about 25 acres.
It might be more than that.
And deep, yeah.
Have to expand it. That's why this wasn't supposed to be this big. This was supposed to be 4.5 meters deep. But when we started that, we got the film of water at about 2 meters, 2.5 meters. So we had to make it longer to increase capacity.
But it seems to me that therefore to take out the only ponds, is there any other form of technology? Because what you're doing is taking out land to produce water.
Yeah, there's also
I mean to do the pond there.
yeah.
Well, that makes sense. But that way you don't have to do it.
Yeah, because we're going to utilize more cool chambers in your factory, so it won't be as much excavation and you won't be using any agricultural land.
Yeah, you will spray pond. I grew up, it's true, sure, my father worked in 3,000 as a boy running around. They used to play in the pond up there, and that was just a huge spray pond behind the factory.
The president is also indicating something going to.
No, I think that when the technical people come, we will look at the agriculture, because if we could use the bond and find a variety that can use the bond for, even if it's not for your market, but it's a market for investment.
Right.
Because anyhow you're taking the water, to go back and see. So that might be a possibility. So you solve the issue.
There's a pond that feeds so that has bass and tilapia. And those are things that we're looking to do, like in Lear's Pond in particular, because then we use the land for 2 purposes, and then you use the floating PV then 3 purposes.
But that resolves the issue.
Yeah.
Even before the PP, if you can do tilapia here,
Yeah.
yeah,
So you can use this pond as
A
a
million tilapia.
To be honest with you, PM, this
You
pond
get
is a
that.
bit
You
shallow.
get that? No, you can give that. The tilapia fingerling.
yeah.
And even layers too. Okay. Right? You can start with a fish cage. You really got to cage set.
I don't know, maybe you may not be the case here,
Yeah, you got to
you don't need it.
But the tilapia is okay.
I know.
No, they can't eat that like that. Trust me.
So let the technical people advise.
Yes,
You can send it to that.
When I send them next week for the films, okay.
Prime Minister, here you talk just now about the water and agriculture. Reminding me I had a meeting with him last week talking about how we can use the water front in South Coast Plan. We have a scheme that we can share with you.
Yeah, that's the one coming up on the
old train line.
old train line.
Yeah.
2.5 million gallons a day. That is
So
tremendous.
this is only from South Coast or this from Bridgetown too?
No, that's well.
Because
South
there's no
Coast.
reason why you can't use Bridgetown too.
Yeah. But South Coast will become available as soon as that project finishes.
Right, but what will be necessary to use Bridgetown too?
Well,
You got Bridgetown here.
no, Bridgetown is secondary, not tertiary.
There's a company there.
Bridgetown across somewhere.
Simon
Not a
here.
large number. I mean, Bridgetown plant is
We have
40
Simon
years old
here,
already.
the guy who introduces
Yeah, where's
He's
here?
having a weekend within that.
Right. That's why I was looking
So
at
we
him
can bring
through
him here.
because Simon is the one who pointed out to me that the Indian frozen shrimp last night is what we got here.
He's good. And let him, so he can come and look at this almost immediately.
Yeah, that's why I told him, let him look at this, let him look at Long Pond, let him look at Rose River, let him look at the tree houses, in addition to then the concrete ponds that we're going to build. Alright? And we will do both the shrimp and the prawns in there, and then we can do the fish.
So what we do back home, even on the dam, where you plant the rice. So we use the dam. So the rice is, let's say you have a 6-month run. But in between, the farmers use the dam to plant catchment or plantain, banana, and things like that. So I take down the rice and dry
For irrigation. Drops in the water.
Yeah, so the dam. So okay, even around here, this fence that you have here, this fence was that our farmers was using this fence. They were planted right along this fence. And the
Vine. It's a vine crop.
and the production you get,
Right
it's a big source.
They don't,
We can do that, and that's why I told
But you can send it
President told me that.
you could ship it to Trinidad.
Yes, even Bora. Do you Bora here? A lot of Bora. You'll get all the Bora here that you can on this one fence.
Right away wrong.
And there, this was camp number 2.
The investment that you make
They said Bora and the plantains.
and the plantain. So the Bora on the fence and outside of the fence you put plantain.
I don't have to come back to you.
No, that's all that you have. So you can easily convert this into phosphorus. Handheld plow. All of that excavated material. That's right. That's why I'm trying to introduce myself.
I'm Mustafa. Come Mustafa.
You know, yeah.
Minister.
Some church.
Danny, come. Mr. Ennis, where are you?
Ready?
Now we have to put me on the more pressure to support this project. The name is there. You have to make sure this project is even more successful.
You got a round thing here now, you got fish and you got crop. The president tell you about crop just now. And you got a number of fine crop. You got the butternut squash that you want. You can put it right on the price here.
This constituency is 10,000.
Yours, but you want to put it as 18.
Like high school.
We probably would have, we'd have some on that. We'll probably have 3,000-4,000 on this fire.
Let's talk about Ghana Plantation.
God bless.